Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all fit and well. Last day. Yes, last day. Last day for 2 full weeks. Well, I mean, it feels like longer than that because I don't actually go on holiday until Monday morning, some ungodly hour. So yes, last show for 2 weeks. I have packed the archives with 6 bits and pieces that will drop while I'm away. I can't remember the actual dates, but I know I think there's two next week and for the week after that. So keep an eye out for that. You will get a notification, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or whatever it might be, you will get a notification that there is a live show coming up. Obviously, I won't be there, although I pre-recorded them. I won't be there, but you can do all of this kind of stuff, uh, but without me, which might make things better. I know Dan Cullum's here early doors, 4:20. Well, guys, it's the finale for 2 weeks. Don't know what I'm going to do now at 10 a.m. Reminisce, or just go to YouTube. I mean, you're already there anyway. Just go to YouTube, watch a back episode, see if you remember. You may well done. Now we've got a new. I was playing around with a different AI yesterday to generate the thumbnail for this show. Some of you may have spotted it. Dan reckons it looks like his dad. I was slightly saddened by that because it was supposed to look a bit like me. It did come out way more rugged than I am. But yeah, having said that, it's not going to apply for much longer because when this show's over, beard's going. Yeah, beard is going. You may not see it. You may not see me without the beard, but it will be going. Yes, gonna get an even tan. Can't can't be red from there up and pale pasty white down there. So yeah, it is going. About I don't know 11:30 today, I think. What else have we got here? Who else is here? Gary Muirhead is here as well, and we've given Gary the day off from our Quizmaster duties because I've got a question of my own. But he says, "Good morning, guys, and happy Friday, everyone." Good morning to you, Gary. I think I saw Jim Turner arrive. He did indeed. He says, "Morning, peeps," and Chris Ford is here as well. Morning, gentlemen and ladies. Don't think there's too many ladies here, but the sun's out. Yeah, and well, it shines upon the righteous, Chris, which is obviously why you have the sunshine today. And yes, I'm hoping it's going to be shining next week on me. Apparently, we may have a thunderstorm when we actually get to our our first destination in Italy. But after that, plain sailing, quite literally plain sailing. So yeah, listen. I'm not planning to broadcast or anything like that, but I will try and record a few bits and pieces, and I'll put them up on the WhatsApp group just so you can see what I'm up to. So maybe you will get to see me without the beard. We shall see. Maybe I'll do it from behind the camera because under here, it's not pretty. It really isn't. And our friend Mick has just arrived, so we can start the show as we are about to. Yeah, it is. Just very quick reminder, final show for 2 weeks. I haven't seen Ken Hatter in the chat yet. Somebody please remind him because otherwise, on a daily basis next week, he will drop me messages to say, "Are you on today?" No is the answer. There he is. There he is. He's got sunshine as well. Ken, last show today, none for 2 weeks. Please remember that because well, feel free to message on the WhatsApp group, but you won't get much of a response. Christopher says, "Will you look 10 years younger, or is it to match the passport?" My passport. I think my passport has actually got a beard in it. I think it is. I think the beard has got the passport photograph has got a beard in it. But it also one of the things that did strike me, which is just goes to show the passage of time. I wish I had it to hand. I could show it to you. My eyes were out of line. I was wearing different glasses because my eyes were out of line because I obviously had that passport photograph taken after my demolition accident when I broke my eye socket. So yeah, it it you can see it's me, but it's not a good look with my eyes all askew. Gary says, "Is Fred getting 2 weeks off?" Yes, he is. I mean, he's not coming with us, but he's got 2 weeks off. He is really, really really been bitten by the golf bug. Really has been bitten by the golf bug. He's sometimes playing 4 and 5 times a week at the moment. Played yesterday, and yeah, there you are. So yes, I think he's probably going to get a lot of golfing while I'm away. Dan says, "Put it in your diary, Ken." Yeah, please do that. Speak of the devil, and yes, Ken arrived, and Ken says, "Have a good holiday. Think of me in work, Ken. You will be at the very forefront of my thoughts while I'm in the sunshine eating pizza." That's probably what will remind me, actually. Um, what did you do with the glasses you wore at the beginning? Well, funnily enough, there are still a couple of pairs here. I'm not a particularly tidy person. I wouldn't say I'm a hoarder, but a bit. Yes. First generation breakfast show, which was which was basically they would take the glare off the screen because I sit here for a long time. And in those, because they prevented you from seeing the fact that I was reading a script. I think you've got past that now. Ken thought Barbie was in your thought. Yes, okay. Ken and Barbie, well done. Shall we crack on? I think we probably should because it is the last show, and I do have a beard to be removed and a bit of a haircut coming up as well. So let me do that thing for the final time for a few weeks. Let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. I'll get to all of that in just a moment. I do want to say a very quick good morning to a person called Raoul Lacroix, who has just started following me over on Instagram. Raoul Lacroix, what a fantastic name. Sounds like a Bond villain. Ah, yes, Mr. Bond. Raoul Lacroix, good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I'll come back to the question of the day and Chrissy's very amusing answer in just a moment, but it is Friday, the 25th of July. Well, this is the last show of July. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition and the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, Priestly Demolition has plenty of energy. Yes, that will make sense in a minute. The evolution of the case Bacco continues. Demolition returns to talk about black carbon. It's an interesting one, this. Apparently, black carbon in the UK capital is almost exclusively now the responsibility of plant and equipment because of ULEZ and emissions reductions policies in the capital. Cars, buses, lorries, all of those sort of things, all of that has been reduced. But there's still black carbon. And guess who's getting the finger of blame pointed at them? Us. Yeah. Demi will be along to talk about that in a moment. And we're also heading off to South Africa for our second dose of case of the day because it's not just diggers, they've got some leaping motorcycles as well. Plus, in my morning monologue today, an industry-wide facade retention. Between that's about 20 minutes away, I would guess. Between now and then, you might want to look up what facade retention is. Basically, it is a demolition process. I will explain it when I get there. But it is a process whereby you prop up the outer walls of a building and you gut what's within. Okay? How about that as a concept for the wider industry? That's what we're going to be talking about just a bit later on. So, before we get any further in, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day because it looks like this. Yes, my question of the day, unusually one of my own. I've given Gary a well-deserved day off from his quizmaster duties. Today's question is designed purely to celebrate the fact that I'm off on my holes starting on an ungodly hour on Monday. And my question is this: what or where would be your ideal holiday destination? Imagine this: money is no object. You can get the time off work. Wives, spouses, girlfriends, whatever it might be, that they're in with this as well. Where would you go? Now, personally, I'm having a bit of a late life love affair with Italy, so that would definitely be on my list. Canada has been on my bucket list for about 40 years, so I'd like to tick that one off too. I'd love to go back to Japan, and I'd really love to visit both China and Korea. Probably not at the same time, but I'd like to do both of those. My retirement is going to be really busy. The more I look at that list, the more I realise I've got a lot to fit in before I finally turn up my toes. Now, let's have a look. What do we got? We've got Chris Ford was immediately on the case. Question of the day: what's a holiday? It's been a while. We were trying to do the maths. Have you noticed how um, the 2 years, or more or less 2 years, of COVID kind of skewed your perception of time? It was almost like somebody's come along and just erased 2 years from my memory, because we were sat here last night. We've done a few cruises, and obviously that's what we're doing on Monday. And we were like, when was the last cruise? What was it, like 4 years ago? 5 years ago? Well, 4 or 5 years ago was at the height of COVID, so it definitely wasn't that. Turns out 8 years ago. 8 years since we've been on a cruise ship, so looking forward to that enormously. Dan says, Alaska, Scandinavia, Iceland, as long as below 15 degrees. Well, you'd get that all in all those places. Or Scandinavia, you get a good day in Scandinavia. It's toasty, really is. It'd be lovely and warm up there. Chris Ford, slightly less ambitious, but I can see the reasoning. 2 days at the Cromford Steam Fair. Have you not got that coming up? I think you have. Florida, been a few times though. 12. Is that 12 times you've been there? Wow. Andy Thornton says, I'm an avid sailor, so sail to BVI's, British Virgin Islands. Had to do the maths. My apologies. That sounds lovely. That sounds lovely. Mick says, anyone on here got farmland? I understand this. Had a call last night regarding fencing and pigs. Jesus H. Christ, I didn't realise how expensive they come to. Oh well, in for a penny. You're going in for pigs, are you? See, you're a better man than I. I would love to keep pigs. I'd love to keep pigs and goats, actually. Couldn't be dispatching them though. Yeah, I'm a city boy, I'm afraid, and the idea of putting a bullet between the eyes of pigs and goats, can't do it. Happy to eat them, more than happy to eat them, but don't want to be doing it myself. I think once I got friendly with a pig, that would be it. We'd be friends for life. Jim Turner, he's mentioned this before. Holiday destination, New Zealand. Ideally when the vintage plant show is on, combining his passions. Oh my God, what next? Are they going to put an extra charge on construction equipment in the capital? Well, we'll discuss that when we get to it, but it makes you wonder. Obviously, we've got the whole ULEZ thing going on in London. So, not only do cars and vehicles fall under that, but equipment does as well. I don't know if there's going to be a direct payment to cover the cost of those additional black carbon emissions. But what I do think is that we will end up with, we're already operating some very, very clean equipment. I think when it comes to London, we may well have to get cleaner still, or just accept the fact that we cannot use diesel machines in London. Wait until Demi does her bit. It'll make sense to you, honestly. Had my first old age pension payment this week. I think I can just about afford a bag of chips tonight. Well, it's not all bad, is it? Bag of chips, not bad at all. Fencing definitely, and it says using cheap. I'm gonna guess that should be isn't cheap. Gary says, question of the day, got to be Italy with all the amazing food and friendly people. If I could pop down to see the genius that is Marco Lorini, it would be a fantastic holiday. It would. I wish I'd recorded it, but I was so caught up in the moment, I was too busy chatting to the guy, basically. When we went to Lorini on the EDA study tour, we were there all morning, had a look around the factory, saw the Setanta, did all the things, and then we all jumped on a coach and went a mile down the road to a restaurant. And it was Italian food, so it was fantastic. Lots of salamis and hams and all that sort of stuff. Some incredible pasta. But the thing that I will remember, apart from the fact that I was sat there having a chinwag with Mr. Lorini himself, it was the nicest smelling place I have ever been. Not just a restaurant, the nicest smelling place. Full stop. Outside, there were huge bushes of honeysuckle, and there were roses and everything else. And you literally got off the coach and you were hit first by the heat because it was a very warm day, but then by the incredible smell of honeysuckle. If you get a chance, please, please, please get down there. Ken Hatcher says, funny thong. I think it means funny thing. I was watching the old forklift blowing black smoke the other day. You don't see it much now. You don't, and I think based on what Demi's going to be saying a bit later, you won't be seeing it. You'll be seeing it even less. Let's have a look. Fencing definitely isn't cheap, and it needs to be really good for pigs. Little buggers love escaping. Yeah, yeah. You're fighting a losing battle there, I think, because pigs are smart. They are smart. Dan says, I also like to go to the deepest quarry in the world and to see these huge mining machines in person. We've actually had this discussion before, haven't we? The idea of actually doing like a busman's holiday, go and pitch camp on the side of a big mine or a big quarry and just sit there all day. Big campfire, coffee, beer for some of you guys as well, and just watch the machines go by while we tell each other tall tales. I'd be up for that. If anyone can make that happen, Caterpillar, Komatsu, Lee Bear, Hitachi, I'm looking at you. If you can make that happen, please do. I'm up. Mick says, Jim, I didn't know there were so many rules to pig farming in Italy and very strict. Well, you see, you have to take good care of your pigs in Italy because of what they will end up being. They will end up being the finest ham and the finest salami in all of Christendom. You can't just throw this together with just a random pig. It's got to be acorn fed and tenderly loved and cared for. Ken, yeah, it is 12 times he's been to Florida. Friend's got a house in Kissimmee. Very nice too. I don't have friends with homes in interesting places, and I feel I've missed out on that. Have the same at home. See, there's a price increase on construction materials again. I did see that. Mark Whiting is in the house as well. Right next to a Ritchie Brothers auction. Get yourself up. Maltby, go to Maltby. It's a fab day out. It really is. Obviously, when the auction's on, but the day before they actually let you have a good poke around. So yeah, if you ever get the chance. Went out with a few pigs in my time, but never kept them. Your secret's safe with me, Gary. Jim says we're having pigs once we're living at our place. Are the rules to do with the minimum standard of fencing, Mick? I didn't expect to go off in this direction, but that's where we are. Funny enough, Mark, had that conversation last night. Happy enough to take the shot when in the army, but not sure about killing an animal. Apparently, the owner has to kill the first one out of tradition to the pig. I mean, I'm a huge fan of tradition as well, but not for me. Not for me. It's why I couldn't do the whole hunting thing and everything else. Incidentally, this is just how my brain works, and I am demob happy because this is my last show for a couple of weeks. You know what I've been telling you about? We've had a fox. Started out is very bold, really, I mean, I'm a dog fan anyway, but a really good-looking little fox has been sleeping on the roof of our shed. Every time there's a warm day, he's up there having a doze in the sunshine. I also told you that a couple of weeks ago, he actually came in our house, despite the fact that we've got two. At the time, we had two boxer dogs. They are quite old. One's deaf. One sadly no longer with us. But he actually came in and walked up to the door of our front room before we spotted him, and he ran away. Somebody took a photograph of him yesterday, asleep on a chair in our local library. I shit you not. If you went out of my front door and did a left, which I'll be doing later to get my beard off, about a 3-minute walk down that way, is Stoneleigh Station and there is Stoneleigh Library. Foxy Loxy has decided to take his books back, and he's popped in there. He's jumped up on a chair and he is spark out. Yeah. Yeah, who knew? Who knew that foxes were avid readers? Chris, Gary Mewett, it's surprising what you do if your mates won't grind out. Not sure what that means. Mick says no minimum standard, Jim. It has to be top of the range, and they will be eating better than me. Don't get me on the vet rules. Yeah, I would imagine they're quite stringent as well. Jim Turner says I'm a stone's throw from Maltby right now. I don't know when their next auction is. I haven't looked for a while, but there you are. Somebody over on Instagram, advocate for nuclear energy, has just said something. I can't read what they're saying, but good morning. Dan says, yeah, it was a great. I was at Euro auctions. And it was a great day. They really are. Yeah, I mean, it's like a plant show, but the planters lived a bit, if you see what I mean. Well done, Mr. Muirhead. What book was it? The Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yeah. Uh, and Dan says, "Wow, in the library, he must have been looking at the books. He was looking at nothing." As I say, clearly not an avid reader, because he popped in there, found himself a comfy chair, and that was where he decided to stay. Yeah. Bold urban foxes, gotta love them. Right, it is time to start the show. I'm going to be back in just a moment with another. Well, I mentioned Canada earlier. Always wanted to go to Canada, and one of the reasons I'd like to go there is to see Priestley Demolition. I met Ryan Priestley while I was in Italy a couple of weeks ago, and he's a fine and splendid fella. So I'll be back in a moment with some of his handiwork. Had a message here from Jim. We're back on pigs again. Much kinder to kill on farm. Just wish we were allowed to do it instead of having to haul animals to a slaughterhouse. Much kinder for them to be killed by someone they know. Is it? Jim, I listen. I realise that you are a rural, a rural man. I realise the rules for cities and countryside are very different, and I realise I'm a total hypocrite. Love me a bacon sandwich, don't want to kill pigs. I realise I am a total hypocrite. But I just think the whole notion of killing animals, just I can't get my head around it. And yeah, as I say, and the bizarre thing is, years ago, I mean, the kind of fishing that I do, I'm a catch and release guy. So I catch a fish. Oh, look, I've caught a fish. Throw it back. That's what I've always done. That's the way I was brought up. Never done anything else. But my best mate, his dad was a very keen fly fisherman. Used to go fishing for trout at a reservoir, and he said, "You like fishing? Come along and have a go." So I went along, and after a few attempts, I kind of mastered how you cast a fly and did the whole thing. Sure enough, I caught a trout, an edible sized trout, about yay big, maybe 1.5 pounds thereabouts. Took it off the hook, and I was literally about to drop it back in the water. And my mate's dad ran up and whacked it across the back of the head. Nope, that's going in the pan. Freaked me out. Having said that, we got back. He scaled it. He gutted it. He cooked it. Delicious. I just didn't want to be doing the dispatching because I'm a coward and a hypocrite. What was the name of the American chap who used to be here who is a company owner? Don't know. I used to hate taking animals to the abattoir for slaughter when I was younger, even though I used to get paid for it. Yeah, again, there's and it's sheep. Sheep, don't mind a bit of lamb. It's not my favourite, but I don't mind a bit of lamb. But when you see those wagons on their way to an abattoir, a slaughterhouse, and you see the sheep looking out. I mean, sheep never look that bright, do they? I mean, they do look a bit of a dumb animal, but it's almost like there's a sadness. I realize I'm projecting this, but there is a sadness in their eyes. It's like, "But we know where we're going. This is it. This is our final journey." I realise I'm an idiot. Should we talk demolition? I think we should. Yeah, as I said, when I was in Italy, it was weird actually. Obviously, a European Demolition Association event, but there were people from Japan. There was a big contingent from Japan actually. A couple of people from Argentina, quite a few from the States, and there was at least one. I think there were about three actually. Three people from Canada, and they were from Priestley Demolition. I admire Priestley Demolition enormously from afar. I will one day pay them a visit, but in the meantime, this is what they do.
So we're standing in the forum area of the Suncor Energy Center. So this is the north entrance of the building coming in off of 5th Avenue. We're in a major part of downtown Calgary. This is the business district, the energy district where a lot of the oil and gas buildings are. So we're standing in one of the main ones in the city of Calgary. It's an iconic building and it's due for a little bit of a facelift, so that's why we're here. The area we're standing in covers 3 levels of the connecting building in between the towers. So we're standing on the ground floor. You have the second level, which is the plus 15 area, and then you have a third level up there, right in between the west and the east tower. What we have to do and what we're continuing to do in here is essentially the removal of all the components that they need out of the way. So that includes the planter system on the north side there. That was full of dirt and organics. The organics were actually recycled with the Calgary Zoo. So they were able to plant some of those trees, and then they were able to use some of them as feed for the animals, which is nice. All of the concrete coming out of here is 100% recycled as well. This right here, this level 2 connecting bridge, used to be one of the main routes for the public to get from the east tower to the west tower. Now, connected to both of these towers is what's called Calgary's plus 15 system, which is a bridge system that connects a lot of the downtown towers together. We're in the middle of taking it out, so we've removed the concrete on top as well as the glass railings. We've taken out the Q deck, and the next stage is to take out the beams. Now, the system consists of 3 main girder beams, which is 1, 2, and 3. The largest of which I believe is in around 36,000 pounds, about 18 ton. And we have to salvage that beam. So that beam will be lowered down to the ground, and it will be re-erected when Ellis Don is ready for that process. Anything to do with our procedures, and especially all the beam work in this building, whether it be steel or concrete, we're responsible for the shoring. So everything is going out the front door. So we've removed some revolving doors at the front. We've made a larger opening there in the glass where Ellis Don's installed a hoarding door, and everything is taken out by hand out of this building and put into bins and taken away.
Fantastic job. As Mick has just said, nice bit of cutting out and tidy to boot as well. Yeah, absolutely. Now that looks a complicated job. One of the presentations that Ryan Priestley did while we were in where were we? Oh yes, we were in Venice. Was taking down a bridge. And he referred to it as redneck engineering. It was way, way better than that. Absolutely fantastic job. And as I say, really nice fella to boot. Enda O'Doherty has just said, nice cut and carve project. I agree 100%. We're going back to pig death now. Who knew we'd end up here? Jim, going back to him, says, animals learn to trust those that tend them, so they are calm around them. They'll be panicked by the presence of a slaughterman and the unfamiliar surroundings. I prefer to kill them myself for their benefit. And he also goes on to say, I feel like I owe an animal I've raised the best death I can possibly give them. It's a respect thing. I fully understand that, and I'm absolutely sure there is a degree of truth to that and everything else. But you mentioned in this bit, they trust you. And a pig or a sheep or a goat or a cow. I mean, cows have they've just got really nice eyes. I'm not cut out for this, am I? But when you think about that, you've gained their trust, and then you are the person that's bumping them off. Yeah, as I say, city boy, don't understand the ways of the country. And Mick says, think I may have to change my outlook, Jim Turner. Mick, have a word with Jim. Jim knows about these things. Maybe not Italian rules and regulations, but he knows about these things. We'll be right back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
I try to avoid this whenever I can, but Case had got 2 new films out in the past 24 hours. One from Europe and one from South Africa. And they were both so good, I thought, oh, sod it, it's my last day. I'll do both. The first one is the latest evolution of their backhoe loader, which coincidentally is called The Evolution.
Hello everyone, I'm Umberto Celestini, Backhoe Loaders Product Manager, and welcome to the walk around of the evolution of the SV series. We are introducing several new features boosting performance and productivity and increasing versatility. Let's take a look at them together. We have installed new hydraulics, increasing flow and operating pressure to have a faster cycle time with the tool carrier loader arm, now 20% quicker than current production, and still featuring its usual best-in-class breakout force and lifting capacity. Another new feature introduced to boost productivity when operating with the loader arm is the presence of the Enable-Disable return-to-dig switch. In particular, when carrying material, it's important to avoid an unwanted engagement of the return-to-dig functionality that could result in losing the load. Therefore, the operator can simply press the dedicated switch and the loader lever won't activate the return-to-dig. Easy, safe and effective.
I agree with that 100%. Dan says Case always made a tidy backhoe, and they continue to do so. Fantastic. Yes, we are going to be talking about black carbon in a minute. Black carbon, just think of it as proper title. That's soot to you. Back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So yesterday I was sent something that basically said a new survey has proved that the level of black carbon in the air in London overall has diminished because of tighter emissions, tighter emissions on cars, buses, vehicles. Where it hasn't gone down, in fact, where it is still maintaining its height, is in construction equipment. Now, I could have tried to explain all the science behind this myself, but I thought, no, she's here for a reason. So I handed it off to Demi. Demi, do your thing. Explain what all this is all about.
Construction sites are now the leading source of black carbon in central London, surpassing road traffic for the first time. New data from researchers at the University of Manchester shows that emissions from diesel generators, excavators, and heavy machinery at busy building zones outweigh vehicle contributions thanks to the success of U-less and Euro 6 standards. Black carbon is known to penetrate the lungs and bloodstream, increasing the risk of respiratory and cardiovascular illness. Scientists measured emissions from the top of the BT Tower during summer and winter using a cutting-edge technique that captures vertical air turbulence and pollutant concentration in real time. London's levels remain lower than those recorded in megacities like Beijing and Delhi, but they exceed World Health Organization limits, thanks in large part to construction work rather than traffic. Dr. James Allen of Manchester and NCOS observed that traffic emissions have dropped to minimal levels, a sharp contrast from 2012 when diesel vehicles were the main culprits. Yet even machinery meeting current emission rules continues to emit substantial black carbon. Researchers found that compliant non-road mobile machinery still produces levels sufficient to undermine air quality, especially in zones with heavy construction activity. This study, the first of its kind in Europe, suggests that further progress in improving London's air quality will require stricter regulation of construction machinery, especially in rapidly developing areas. We compared observed emissions with emission standards for construction equipment. Dr. Allen concludes, we found that even with compliance, black carbon output from generators, machinery, and construction vehicles remains significant. This is Demolition reporting for the Break Fast Show.
A couple of things on that. First off, despite my disdain for ULEZ and the person that introduced it, 13 years ago, the highest contributor of black carbon in the nation's capital was vehicles. Through the instigation of emissions regulations, including ULEZ, it's no longer the case. So you have to say, despite my deep distrust of Sadiq Khan and all that ride in him, you have to say they've done what they set out to do. So yeah, I grudgingly tip my hat. Couple of things though. Why is it that we've still got a hangover within the plant sector? I mean, bearing in mind we've been through tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, and everything. Why are we still kicking out emissions when the vehicle manufacturers are not? Is that a disparity between the regulations relating to vehicles and the regulations relating to equipment? The other thing that struck me about that is that the black carbon to which Demi was just referring is localized, and it's localized around busy demolition and construction sites, which means, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an environmentalist, but that means that if that black carbon and that soot is localized around those sites, who gets to breathe it in first? You guys. Yeah, those that are working in and around construction equipment are breathing in black carbon, which, what was it, respiratory disease and so on down the line. You are patient zero for that because you're working beside that. Does that not make you think? I mean, obviously, we often talk about electrification and hydrogenization and everything else. But all of the claims that we've had from construction equipment manufacturers, "Oh, our machine has never been cleaner, never been cleaner. You could suck on the exhaust." No manufacturer's ever said this, but you get my point. You could suck on the exhaust and you'd be fine. Turns out, not so much. Not so much. Right, going back to well, let me do Chris first because he's on his way out the door. Have a good holiday, Mark. Unfortunately, work beckons. I'll tune in a fortnight. All the best, chaps. Jim, I'll keep an eye out for you at Cromford. Please do that. Please take lots of photographs. Have a fantastic time. Jim says, even more than knowing them, we're back to pigs again. I might have even pulled them out of their mother at birth, tending them nearly every day out of their life, looked after them just as well as I would have done one of my dogs. But they are livestock, bred to be eaten. And I have all that straightened out in my head from day one. I guess that, going back to Mick, and Mick did mention his time in the military. Although I have my angry moments, not as much as I did when I was younger. Could I actually shoot someone? I often talk about putting a bullet between Piers Morgan's eyes. Could I? Probably not. No, probably not. I mean, he pisses me off, but not to that degree. But I guess if you do, if you are a farmer and you get it straight in your head, if you are a soldier and you get it straight in your head, then maybe those things are possible. Just not for me because I'm a bit of a twat. Demi is a bit of a smart lady. She is way smarter than me, which is why I give her the complicated stuff to do. This is going to be a headache for some companies and developers, as many use generators and plant. Yeah. I mean, if I think one of the I think one of the things that this highlighted, which is why I was very keen to share it with you, it's like the entire industry, and I'm talking about buses, lorries, cars, motorcycles, and plant are all on a starting line, and all of the vehicles have taken a step back and stood on the front line completely alone and exposed now are the plant manufacturers and the plant owners and operators, because everybody else has improved and upped their game in terms of emissions control. It has now exposed the fact that maybe we haven't. Yeah. Mick, yes, Jim, I was just looking forward to the hams and bacon not coming from a shop or wrapper. Much deeper thinking going on now. I bet there is. Dan, so now this is out. Will there be a charge per day machine on sites and both companies and developers may be paying? Would it affect the rates too? Who knows? I mean, ULEZ does apply, doesn't it? I mean, ULEZ does apply if you're wanting to operate plant. ULEZ does apply. What I find strange is this down to an age thing? I don't mean age of people. I mean age of plant. Because I mean I live on the. I basically live in an ultra low emission zone, but we have a hybrid car, so we're immune to it. And I'm fairly sure it was done. If your car was made after X date, I can't remember what that date was. You're fine and dandy because emissions will have got that down a bit. Is that the case with plant? And if that is the case, are we going to end up with a situation in London? And let's be honest, if it happens in London, it'll happen in Birmingham and Manchester and Leeds and so on down the line. Will we get to a point where you will only be able to operate the very, very, very latest equipment? Because if that's the case, things are going to get mighty expensive, aren't they? They really are. Jim says it's, what does Jim say? He says it's probably an autism thing. Everything is ordered, debated with myself, and then decided. The missus is not like me. I always say her heart is bigger than her brain. I hope she's not in earshot. AdBlue is made of pig's piss. I think that's a myth. I'm fairly sure. I was under that impression because it is referred to as urea, isn't it? But I'm fairly sure I was told that was a misnomer. Mate, if anybody knows, please let me know. Gary says, hope you and Ruth have a fantastic holiday. See you when we get back. Enjoy. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for that, Gary. Strange, all this pollution. Some say it's still the same even after ULEZ. Some say different. And was this study just done around science? No, it was. I think it was mentioned in the thing there. It was. They actually did the measurement from the BT Tower. So taking in the surroundings, and apparently I did read it. It was too complicated. But apparently, because of the height and the location of the BT Tower, you get this kind of updraft of air, so it's constantly sort of feeding it whatever is lurking below, and they could ice. And apparently, the black carbon they were finding was predominantly from construction sites. I wonder how they're going to deal with it on a ULEZ style charge. Will it affect smaller ones? Yeah, it could well do. If that information falls into the hands of Sadiq Khan, good God, yeah, you could end up, on your way into London with your low loader with your excavator on the back. You could end up handing over 30 quid or whatever it is, because if companies paying the charge, will that contradict the rates to operators? 2016 was the date, I believe. I think you're right about 2016. Apparently, Mark Whiting says his 4CX is ULEZ compliant. Interesting point. Just on that, did you discover that, or is that something that JCB have told you? I'd be interested to know if manufacturers are now selling that as a benefit. It's your machine is ULEZ compliant. Be an interesting take if it was. Dan says, have a safe trip and enjoy your trip together. Don't miss that boat. I will try not to. Pig's urine is a myth. It's synthetic urea. I thought as much. Chemically manufactured from ammonia and carbon dioxide. There you are. Mick says, Khan is more than likely already knows about it. Truth be told, I think if you scratch the surface, he probably instigated the study in the first place. So, is London banning any planes from flying in anywhere near it? I think planes will be far worse than plant. Again, I just makes you wonder. As I say, the testing was done with the air rising, not the air falling. I wonder. And apparently, AdBlue is 32.5% urea, synthetic, and 67.5% deionized water. Isn't that the shit you used to have to put in your battery? I think it may be. And somebody here from Twitch has just said, greetings to you. Greetings to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us from Twitchland. One more film for you. If you like plant, you'll enjoy this. If you like motorbikes, you'll like it. If you like both, you'll really enjoy it. Back after this. Yeah, our final film of this season. A quick reminder, I'm going on holiday. Final film of this season. It comes all the way from South Africa. The Five Folks at Case, their second appearance today, they hosted an open day. Nothing unusual in that. Lots of plant going about, people enjoying a barbecue, having a fine old time. And then the motorbikes pitch up. Enjoy. Look like a fun day out, right? Going back to Mark Whited, we're talking about his 4CX, which is ULEZ compliant. He says he checked the online tax check because that travel through ULEZ in Birmingham. There you are. Jim Turner. Funny how pollution levels dropped like a stone in COVID when planes were grounded, but that won't stop them as they're already making a fortune off the aviation industry. I wonder about public perception as well. If anybody has ever watched Lee Evans talking about holiday makers, British holiday makers, in the event of a terrorist attack, somebody on a plane stands up and we are taking this plane to Palestine, and 300 angry Brits stand up. You're fucking not. I wonder. I think we've kind of learned to tolerate grudgingly. I think we've learned to tolerate the notion of paying more to travel in and out of London because some people only do that every once in a while. I think if we suddenly announce, due to concerns over carbon emissions, we are going to increase the cost of your holiday, I think there would be riots in the street. Dan has given a detailed explanation of exactly what Urea and AdBlue is all about. That music, very Linkin Parkish. Kind of agree. Wow, that's some outfit. Case looks cool. Wonder how often they have to change filters, as dust is more than here. Regularly, I would imagine. Yeah, regularly. If Frank is watching from a Diacon demo, perhaps he would be kind enough to share that. Speaking of Frank, I'm just hoping I've kept it. Did I keep it? Did I keep it? Bear with me 1 second. Just talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back with you in just a moment. Where did it go? No, can't find it. Can't find it. I'm sure it was. No, can't find it. But you know, we were talking to Frank at Diacon Demo yesterday. He was saying how cold it was in Australia. He actually sent me a photograph. Not only did he have a high vis vest on, he had a high vis jacket over the top at 13 degrees or 15 degrees, whatever it was. Anyway, people, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning show. Also wraps up this show for 2 weeks. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. I promise I will be back in 2 weeks' time. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. The 12th of August, that will be my return. But if you do have the time and the inclination, excuse me, if you have the time and the inclination, I will be back in just a moment after I know I've mentioned it multiple times, but I'm going to mention it again. I'm going on holiday in a few days' time. So this is my final monologue for 2 weeks. So maybe I'm just feeling a bit demob happy, a little more laid back than usual. And in that spirit, I thought I'd give you a bit of a glimpse behind the journalistic curtain to witness the origin and the birth of a story. Now, to the best of my knowledge, journalism doesn't have a magic circle that forbids me from sharing our secrets. And even if there is such a thing, they'll have to come and find me in Italy. So I'm fairly laid back. So this is how this article came about. I was talking to an industry friend yesterday about the process of facade retention within the field of demolition. For those of you that don't know, the process is precisely as the name suggests. It's a demolition and construction technique in which the external walls or the facade of a building are preserved while the rest of the structure, usually the interior and sometimes the roof, is demolished and rebuilt. It's a process I've encountered many, many times over the year, and it's one that I find endlessly fascinating because it really is a test of the ingenuity and the engineering skill of the demolition contractor. Which is why it struck me as odd that this thought had never occurred to me, that facade retention is, in many ways, the perfect metaphor for the demolition industry of today. And the more I thought about it, the more similarities I found. Allow me to explain, and I will start with the reason that facade retention is usually deployed. Facade retention is often used when the facade has historical value that needs to be protected, but that which lies behind the facade requires modernisation. Does that same notion not apply to demolition itself, and to the organisations that claim to govern and save on it, and to the organisations that claim to govern and save it? I'm going to do it one last time. Does that not Does that not same that doesn't even make sense. Does that same notion not apply to the demolition itself and to the organisations that claim to govern and save it? Should be serve it. I'll let it go. Outwardly, they appear to have an intrinsic value, but behind the veneer lies a crumbling edifice or a void. And the whole thing is propped up behind the scenes while people scurry about and hope the whole thing doesn't fall over. You might look at this another way. There is some modernisation taking place inside, but you wouldn't know it from the outside. One of the reasons often given for the pursuit of facade retention is urban continuity, because perish the thought that anything was modernised to the degree that it actually stood out and made everything around it look outdated. Is that ringing any bells? Facade retention begins with a full investigation and assessment to ensure that a building can be supported independently. If we applied that same logic to the demolition industry and the organisations that sit atop it, could they be supported independently? Should they be? Once a structure has been supported, the process of internal demolition can begin, clearing the way for some long overdue improvement and modernisation. Obviously, these metaphors sometimes just write themselves. Is the demolition industry not due some support and some internal improvement and modernisation? One of the key challenges with both building and construction facade retention is one of compromise. Developers must design a new structure around the constraints of the old facade, and that limits their creativity and the scope of any modernisation. In the demolition industry, the same rules of compromise apply. Ambitious plans are constrained by the rules and sometimes the people of the past, ensuring that any progress is limited in its scope. The retained facade might be beautiful, ornate, or architecturally significant, but often, let's be honest, it's not. It's just old. It's not historically important, not aesthetically pleasing. It's just there. And yet it's preserved, often at enormous cost and complexity, because someone somewhere decided that it has to remain. In the demolition industry, how many practices, processes, people, and institutions are held in place not because they're right, but because they're familiar, because they're there, because they always have been. And that's not heritage, that's inertia. And just like the retained facades that are braced, scaffolded, and sometimes even faked or rebuilt brick by brick, this industry is increasingly propped up by external forces. PR firms giving it a fresh coat of paint, health and safety posters giving the illusion of care, training schemes giving the impression of competence, awards that offer the perception of excellence while mediocrity thrives. The reality is, behind the facade is often much less glamorous. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Some buildings need to be torn down. And some institutions, however long-standing, are no longer fit for purpose. But we're not ready to face that yet, are we? So we preserve the illusion. We keep the old shop fronts, the familiar stonework, the signage that reminds us of a time when things seemed more certain. We preserve the outer casing of trade bodies, regulatory organisations, or even entire companies long after they've ceased to serve any meaningful function. We design our modern ambitions around their limitations, shrinking our aspirations to fit inside someone else's outline. We're effectively gutting ourselves to preserve the shell. And let's talk about cost for a moment. Facade retention isn't cheap. It requires precision, engineering, planning, constant vigilance. One mistake and the entire thing can collapse. The cost of keeping up appearances is enormous, both financially and emotionally. And it's the same in demolition. Contractors jumping through bureaucratic hoops to appease outdated regulations. Professionals navigating a maze of accreditation schemes, many of which deliver more revenue to the scheme owners than value to the members. Workers carrying the weight of obsolete systems, unsupported and undervalued because the industry is still being built around an outdated shell. We should be building something new, something bold, something better. But we don't. The facade must remain, even when it merely conceals decay. And here's where the metaphor becomes more personal. In real facade retention, the structure behind is cleared, modernised, rebuilt with new systems and materials. It's supposed to be progress. But what if they only clear out the easy parts? What if the foundations are left untouched? What if we retain not just the facade, but the problems too? The industry has, in many cases, done precisely that. We've replaced tools, but not mindsets. We've brought in tech, but not training. We've invited women and excuse me. We've invited women and minorities to join, but not changed the culture to make them stay. We've whispered about mental health while demanding longer hours. We've told ourselves the future is coming while dragging the past behind us like so much baggage. Facade retention might preserve the look of continuity, but it also preserves the limits of the past. Every decision, every change must be made with reference to the lines already drawn. And that mentality runs deep in demolition. Want to try something new? First check that it won't upset the facade. Want to speak up about a problem? Not if it threatens the look of unity. Want to innovate? Sure, but only within the existing framework. No wonder progress is slow. No wonder people leave. And when the facade starts to crack, as it inevitably does, we rush in to patch it up. A new code of practice, a hastily drafted press release, a token appointment to a committee, a conference panel with just enough diversity to tick a box. We fix the facade, but not the foundations. At its best, facade retention is about honouring heritage while adapting to modern needs. But too often it becomes an excuse to avoid change altogether. The facade is not heritage, it's camouflage, a relic that's used to justify a refusal to rebuild. Of course, some facades are really worth preserving, just as some traditions, values, and legacies in the industry deserve protection, but only if what lies behind them is equally strong and equally sound. Because a beautiful facade without structure is just a wall waiting to fall down. And I worry that demolition as an industry is becoming just that, a front, a shell, a familiar outline that reassures us we're still standing, even as everything behind us has been hollowed out. So maybe it's time we stopped preserving appearances and started rebuilding for real. Not with props and bracing, not with compromise, but with the courage to ask, is this worth keeping? And what would we build if we could start from scratch? Facade retention can be a clever engineering solution, but it should never be a metaphor for our mindset. I wish I hadn't stumbled over my words as much as I did, because I wrote that yesterday afternoon, and then I read it back to myself last night. And I actually said I said this out loud because this is what a conceited shit I am. I actually said to my wife, I'm really fucking good at this. And then I stumbled over my words. None of it made any sense. Go to LinkedIn or go to Demolition Insider and have a look, because you'll be able to read it. And if you read it in your own voice, I promise you it will make a whole lot more sense. The 12th of Never, wasn't it an Elvis song? I think it was, actually, yeah. Facade sums up the NFDC to a T. The old boys club is still alive, yeah. A little nervous, I would suggest, right about now. Yes, some organisations need tearing down, but the buildings definitely need keeping up. I wonder about that, though. And listen, I take these off. I don't know if my ears have changed shape. My in-ear monitors are really starting to hurt my ears now. I wouldn't say I'm an architecture buff, but I'm strolling through my native London. I do like to look up and see old buildings and everything else. But it's a strange thing, isn't it? Yeah. Let's compare a building with a car. If you were to drive a Model T Ford down your local high street, yes, people might stop and point. Yes, it would have novelty value, and yes, I'm sure you'd be very proud, and I'm sure it would be very expensive. But ultimately, you're looking at it thinking, that's not really fit for purpose these days, is it? It's it's slow, it's noisy, it burns through petrol, it's leaking all over the place. Is that really the best vehicle for today? And yet, facade retention, and I understand the reasons for doing it. And I have to say, hats off to the team at Erith. I went to see them doing a facade retention at the Cafe Royal in Regent Street in London. phenomenal job, absolutely phenomenal. But when you think about London, you think about the Shard and the Gherkin and the walkie-talkie and the cheese grater and all that. Now, as I say, I'm not an architecture student by any means. But those buildings look like they belong in a modern 21st century environment. And while I'm very keen on preserving certain buildings, are they really fit for purpose? And who are we kidding with that as a concept? You go into the Cafe Royal now. The front looks exactly the same revolving doors, same vintage outer, and you go in and it's sleek and modern. Would that not have been better just being sleek and modern? Does that not make more sense? And going back to Mick's point, I have to say, Mick, when I got into writing that was one of the ones that came up. We have all of these traditions, and a lot of the traditions of the NFDC date back to the early days, so back to the 1940s. They still have medals for their senior officers. I think that would have made sense, late 40s, early 50s, when a lot of the guys had been in the military and they'd come out and, medals were a thing. But in 2025, do they make sense? They have their meetings in, oak paneled rooms where they quaff port and drink and smoke cigars. Does that suggest 2025 to you? They have honorary life vice presidents who were presidents 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, still making decisions, guiding the direction of the NFDC. Do they, they may have been the new kid on the block. They may have been the young dynamic person 20 years ago. Are they now? Are they? I'm a firm believer there is unquestionably room for tradition and legacy and everything else. But legacy, when it holds things back, and again, I mean, the metaphors did write themselves with a lot of that. If you're just using, a company, an organization like the NFDC or whatever, if you are using that front just to cover up the cracks behind you, are you really serving the industry and your members? I would question that. Yes, some organizations need tearing down, buildings definitely need keeping up. We've done that one, sorry. Well said. These facade things, more costs and limits around the time and framework can be done, never fix the problem. Yeah. And it is that constraint thing. That wasn't where I started. That wasn't my kickoff point. But when I got into it, that was the one that really stood out for me. If the Cafe Royal being an example, I think they kept the back, both sides and the front, took the roof off so that they could do their thing. And I think they put some of the roof back. I think that was the way it worked. It's a long while ago. But everything that they did had to be within those four walls. There was no, I mean, even things like, taking waste out and bringing new materials in, all had to take place within the footprint of that very old, I don't know when it was built, 1700s maybe, that very old building. All of it had to take, it doesn't allow you, and I'm stretching the metaphor a bit, it doesn't allow you to think, so like, let's use the NFDC as an example. Here is the NFDC Articles of Association. Here is the box within which you must work. But what about if we went here and things were better? No, because the rules say this. You are in this box and you must not stray from that box. Andy Thornton says, what a thought-provoking metaphor. Thank you very much. We could do an hour on that alone. New comes with risk and risk comes with responsibility. People are naturally risk-averse. And we were talking about this a little while ago about the lack of vision. And I do wonder if that is part of the issue. I think being risk-averse is one thing, but I also think we've established a situation or a system where everything, from companies to organizations and trade federations and everything else, they are run by committee. So even if somebody came up with a revolutionary idea, somebody had their eureka moment and said, this this will take us in a whole new direction. If the rest of the committee go, yeah, or there's a few old fogies in the committee, which there are on most committees, and they go, not in my day, that revolutionary idea dies there and then. Strong. Well, look at the houses built and builders built 100 years ago. The strength is amazing. Houses now barely last 20 years, and there's cracks. Yep. Mix says, worked on a few retentions over the years. Got to say, I watched the old London hospital being done. Great that they saved the front. Shame they made it to the Tower Hamlets. Town Hall must be the only council under constant watch for corruption. I bet it bloody ain't. I bet it ain't. Jim Turner says, yes, but put that Model T body on a new chassis, engine and running gear. You then have the same thing as a stylish building with a brand new structure inside. Point well made. Both have all the style and history and charm, but without the old problems. It is a fair comment. But given the cost, and even that, I mean, you've mentioned about new chassis, new engine and running gear. How limited are you? The size and shape. Let's take engine as an example. If you've got a Model T Ford and you are determined to preserve the outer shell, which is a beautiful thing, I grant you, how many engines will slot in that? Modern engines will slot in that without having to modify the outer. Mick says was on the Piccadilly Hotel when the Cafe Royal was being done. Bloody difficult job. It really was. Yeah, I went up there a couple of times, and I think that was one where I could actually stand back and say, yeah, I can see exactly why they're doing this. Obviously, the Cafe Royal has a huge amount of history, and it's within. It's a historic building within a historic street within a historic part of London. I fully understand the notion of facade retention there. But would it not have been better and easier to just say, yeah, okay, it's had its history. We've logged all that history. Why don't we just replace it with something modern and shiny and new? There you are. That's me done for 2 weeks. I'll be back on the 12th of August at 10 a.m. in the morning. I may have a tan. It's more likely that I'll be red and peeling, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I'll be back on the 12th. There are a bunch of things are going to drop while I'm away over the course of that 2 weeks. I think I've got 2 bits that will drop next week, and then the week after there's 4, and it ends with an interview about a transatlantic explosive demolition alliance. That's the last one. That's on not next Friday, the Friday after. I'm hoping the system works. I've only ever used it once or twice before. I've never been entirely convinced by it, but apparently it will schedule things and things will land and things will happen. So keep an eye out for that. Wherever you are, if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, you should get a notification that there will be a show the following day. You can tune in as you normally do. Jim says, plenty of engines as you're just grafting the body onto an existing vehicle. So what's the point? Oh, at which point does that stop being a Model T Ford? I mean, there's it's what was the character's name? It's Trigger's broom, isn't it? I've had 13 new heads and 12 new handles. It's not a Model T anymore, is it? See what I mean? Andy says, enjoy your holes. We'll speak when you get back. I will indeed. I promise that will happen. Right, the sun is out and the hound fancies the pub. Stay safe, gents. Catch you in a fortnight. Look after yourself, Mick. I'll speak to you soon. Good luck. Stay safe and enjoy. Thank you very much indeed. Have a good holiday to you and the Mrs. Mark. I will indeed. And Jim Turner says, I bet there'll even be an electric Model T out there somewhere. Matter of time, I would imagine. Matter of time. I'd love to take that for a spin. You imagine a Model T Ford, but silent. Get behind that. Everybody go and look after yourself. Look after yourself today, tomorrow, next 2 weeks, because I want everybody here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, 10 a.m. on the 12th of August. Until then, everybody, see you soon. All the best.